Hello, everybody. Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
Hi, and it's number 290.
It is, and
In
it's also.
sounding the what is it? Was sounding?
The Shallows.
Yes, I know. Sounding the Shallows. Yes.
Also, a new year. Unbelievably,
Yes,
we're
it was
in
rather odd last night, wasn't it?
2026.
We decided we weren't going to celebrate it. It was only us two here plus a dog. So we decided we'd go to bed about 9:15.
Oh, come on! It was later than that.
9:20. I don't know. Anyway, 10ish perhaps. And so I think we were both fast asleep. And at midnight, someone locally set off an incredibly loud firework. Just one loud, enormous bang that woke us. So we nearly jumped out of bed, and I think both of us probably forgotten why there would be a huge bang at midnight.
Well, we were talking, weren't we, about the fact that
we forgave that person, didn't we?
Well,
in the night.
I suppose we did. I mean, we were talking today, though, weren't we, about the fact that we don't remember this massive thing about fireworks all over the country.
A New Year,
at
you
New
mean?
Year,
No,
and
no.
and I think it's mainly started at the millennium, where everybody had fireworks and sort of took over from bonfire night, not being bonfire night, not really being worldwidely understood,
Yeah.
and now it's a huge part of it. Although I wasn't very loving towards the person who set off the firework at 12, but maybe if we'd been up wildly having a party, the two of us,
Well,
we
I
wouldn't have
suppose.
minded.
I'm not sure we'd have made enough noise to drown out the. No, I suppose that is right, isn't it? And of course, people abroad cannot understand why we celebrate the death of someone who tried to destroy Parliament.
Oh, right, what you mean bonfire night? Well,
Yeah.
no.
Doesn't make any
no,
sense at all.
No, but at least the beginning of the new year, even if it's at a different time,
Yeah.
it does apply to the whole world.
I was looking back at the Sacred Diary. That actually it wasn't. Everyone thinks it was my first book. It was the second one, I think. But to see what happened on
At New Year.
at New Year.
Actually, interestingly, well, we'll talk about it afterwards, but one of the things in this has been the thing everybody has remembered ever since, I
Well,
think.
it's one of about three things.
Yes.
And when you're writing something, it's always like this. You think, no, I think that might capture people's imagination, or I think that's rather neat what I've written there, and they'll respond to that.
What
And then,
change people's lives.
oh well, maybe, and then you find that actually it was some comma. No, that's exaggeration. Anyway, yes.
This is a
was
New Year party,
December
isn't
the
it?
31st.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anne and I and Gerald. Anne's my wife in the diary, and Gerald is my son.
Son in the diary, who's
Yeah.
a teenager, yeah.
Yeah. Went to the Cooks at 9 p.m. for the church's New Year's Eve party. Earlier on, I had said, "We'll take quiche, shall we?" Anne said, "Well, cake would probably be better." I gently but quite firmly reminded Anne that Scripture tells us the man is the head of the woman. So we took quiche. Everyone took quiche. No sandwiches, no cake, no puddings, just acres and acres of quiche. Anne said, "What now, O Lord and Master?" Gerald said the Lord's Prayer should change to, "Give us this day our daily quiche," because that's all Christians ever eat. There was a period in the history of the church where quiche was dominant.
Well, probably partly due to you,
Yeah,
Plass.
probably. Richard Cook was standing nearby and overheard. He said we were mocking the word, or Gerald was mocking the word, and did Gerald really have assurance? Gerald foolishly and flippantly replied, "Yes, I'm with the Woolwich." That's an old insurance company that's disappeared. Richard stormed up towards the Raspberry Aid. I wish Gerald wouldn't do it. And yeah, so the thing that surprised us, I think, is that overwhelmingly the thing people remembered about that part of the book was the quiche.
Was the quiche.
What is...
I know. What with fruit gums that you've had fruit gums thrown at you at the end of talks all over the world,
Well,
just
I've
about
had-
because of fruit gums being mentioned in the very
right, yeah.
first episode,
Well,
which was
not necessarily fruit gums, but what they consider to be the equivalent of fruit gums. So the person who translates the book in Holland, for instance, I seem to remember it was a very hard little white sweet. So people did bombard me with them, but they were quite painful. Seriously, they
And
were
it was gummy
little
bears in
hard sweet
Germany.
gummy bears. Was
Yeah.
it gummy or I don't know?
Yeah, it
In
was.
Germany and whatever it was elsewhere. Yeah. So it's funny, isn't it? And there was
It
there's
is a
another
little.
bit where
Oh, sorry.
well, quickly this character called Leonard Thin comes around to borrow the cat. And we don't learn why he came round to borrow the cat. And again, everywhere at that stage in my life, people said, we want to know why Gerald Thin borrowed the cat.
Yes, I mean, you often hope for quite erudite questions at the end of a talk, didn't you? When, the organizer would say, would anybody like to ask Adrian or Mr. Plass or whatever they were addressing you a question?
Yeah.
And again and again and again and again it was, yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Why did Leonard Thin borrow the cat?
A German fellow after one meeting in Germany said, he said, why does your jumper come lower or higher rather than your shirt? Why is your shirt sticking out from under your jumper? I said, I don't know. I did. But things like that seem terribly. But on the other hand, one of the things it did do was find so many common points with communities all over the world. I mean, people would say about this abominable couple called the Flushpools, we have Flushpools in our church, and that could be in South Africa or Australia.
Yeah.
So I suppose.
Yeah. So the beginning of the new year all over the world, and the Flushpools in every church. I don't know. It is a funny one, though. I was really struck when I was sending messages early this morning to all our family and one or two friends. Happy New Year, and I thought, we don't know what the year is going to be. I mean, it's a very, we want you to be happy. Of course we do. But the unpredictability, like you were saying about the unpredictability of the things that people remember from what you've written, it's that unpredictability, isn't it? We have no idea. It's another day following another day following another day. And anything could happen. And whatever we think might be the answer to problems, or might be a way of dealing with things, doesn't always work out. And I was thinking, Adrian,
just before you carry on quickly, this New Year, this Christmas, we had a phone call in the middle of breakfast from the person who had organised the cottage we were in, to say we should have left that morning, and the people had come to clean. So that was rather unexpected.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we thought we had another 2 days. Yes,
anyway.
It was a very Plass-like thing.
Yes,
the whole extended Plass family rushing around cleaning up. Yeah, that was true. That was true.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was thinking about how we do assume that there are certain solutions to things and certain answers to things. And do you remember a friend of ours many years ago? I mean, she had a real phobia, didn't she? A real fear.
Of what? About what?
A fear of flying.
Oh, yes. No, I don't know.
And
I hope she's listening.
it would be lovely if she was.
Yeah, if you are, get in touch, because it would be great to hear from you again.
We'll tell them what happened. Because, it was so sensible. Everything about it was the right route to end up with the right solution, that she would no longer be afraid of the thing that had dominated her life up to that point, which was a fear of flying.
I have to say that we've repeated this story to groups of people who find it really quite incredible, and it is really.
Go on, then.
She was terrified of flying. Right. She's a very nice person, but she had these things, and one of them was flying, and she decided to grab the bull by the horns, or whatever it is you do, and go on a course which would help her to calm her fear of flying.
It was specifically designed for people terrified of getting into a plane.
So if you can imagine a group of people sitting in a room, all of whom are frightened of flying. Now, I can't remember too many of the early details, but obviously the person running it went through some aspects of it, and probably about the odds against any trouble happening, which are enormous, and some tips and some ideas and all that. But then
it was the fun day, wasn't it? When they were all going to go up in a plane.
Well, this I find incredible anyway. They were all going to go up in a plane to demonstrate how safe it was to fly in a plane. Now, if you said you wanted to get a committee together to decide the worst possible thing to happen to people who are frightened of flying when they're in a plane, this would come very near the top of the list. What happened was that the plane was struck by lightning.
It's true.
And
it's honestly true.
So this group of people who had previously, someone had said to them, "No, you really don't have to be frightened of flying. You know, it hardly anything ever happens." And the plane, I mean, fortunately, or we wouldn't be able to tell the story, it wasn't damaged sufficiently for it to crash or anything like that. But
and the unbelievable thing was that she said, well, after that, she felt the worst had happened.
Yeah.
And she wasn't so frightened anymore, and she's been in many planes.
Well, she said that, yeah.
But,
I suppose so. Yeah, well,
but
I
mean,
hope
it is so unpredictable. You can plan, you can think that you've organised everything, and you have no idea really what's going to happen. No. And I think it is like I say, we say Happy New Year, but for a lot of people, I mean, I've only got to think about what's happened in a ski resort just days ago. You go off either yourselves to ski, or you go off.
That's horrendous.
You send your children off, or your parents, I suppose. But I mean, you do not expect that if they go to a nightclub in a beautiful a skiing resort, that something appalling will happen and there'll be a terrible fire. And obviously that we're still finding details of that. It struck me, that we can only ask the questions sometimes. I mean, why did that plane get struck by lightning, which is okay as it happens? Why did everybody take quiche? And I remember once organising a party at our church, and for some obscure reason, everybody brought those horrible little frozen sausage rolls. We had plates upon plates of nasty little sausage rolls. So after that, we got a bit more organised and invited people to bring particular things. But it's that unpredictability, and sometimes darkness is overwhelming, isn't it? And it's all right to ask the questions. I was thinking today, Adrian, it's real leaden sky here. It's very windy, very, very cold. And you wrote a poem a long time ago. Can you remember why you wrote it? It's called Winter Waking. And it was certainly at a time when there was such a sadness in you about something that had happened to somebody else. It doesn't really matter.
No, I think it was because I'd encountered a disproportionate number of people for whom everything had broken down, and some of them were people who had relied on their faith and the things they believed, and that God would help, support, save, whatever. And I think at that time, so that's our dog arguing with us on the side there. I think at that time, it was very early in my experimenting with saying how I actually felt. And so for me, it was probably an exercise in actually openly and freely saying what was going on in me. I don't know.
I mean, it certainly tunes in to what a lot of people who we meet fairly often feel. The second line, that idea that God has turned out to be indifferent to what's going on. I'll read it anyway, because I hope we're going to manage to do this. Our dog is getting extremely irritable around my ankles, can I point out?
Dear.
I'll have a go anyway.
Hold this.
Winter Waking. Winter waking, stretched across the moonstone sky, caring less than nothing for the destiny of man, you see the crows, like ragged scraps of dustbin bag, come floating down the wind to scavenge what they can. And nothing need be spoken. Deep in winter sleep is where you hear the saddest cry, the wheeling, dealing seagull souls of men and women taught to stay a step ahead, who reached the edge but found that when they fell, they had not learned to fly. I tell you that it drives you wild. It drives you out to march and march beside the heartless sea, to weep and rage and beg the only one who really knows to tell you why so many hearts are broken.
It remains the most pungent, cogent, in other words, ending in ENT, question that is around this area, because it's very difficult when people have been taught that you have a figure who is a father, that is God, and the positive interpretation of that is someone who cares for you and uses everything in his or her power to help you and save you from things, and it doesn't happen.
It doesn't, but within this little poem, something I know has helped other people, that it's okay to march and weep and rage and shout at God and ask him. And you're not necessarily going to get an answer. But that's relationship, isn't it? It's just like you would with somebody who'd hurt you or ignored you within your close family.
Yeah.
Why weren't you there? Why didn't you do something? Why could you not take away the hurt? And I think there'll be many children who have felt that about their parents. We know several people who went to boarding school when they were really little, maybe too little to cope, wondering why. There's children we've met whose parents have broken up and who've just apparently let them down. And it's through the questioning, through the trying to come closer to understand that sometimes people are able to cope.
Certainly being able to freely say what you feel and think. I mean, in the old days, I suppose I mean when I first became a Christian, you didn't depart from positive comments about God. It still happens, unfortunately, and I think it's really not very helpful. I remember writing ages ago about Peter on the shore. Simon Peter arrives on the shore with Jesus, and Jesus asks him 3 times, "Do you love me?" And Peter gets quite upset and het up and says, "You know I do," 3 times. And finally, Jesus says, "Feed my sheep," which means your priority now is to be part of the plan I have for what needs to happen. And the thing I realized completely for the first time then was that within that relationship and within that assurance and within that promise that Peter said, "You know I do, you know I love you, you know I'll do what you say," is that there is no guarantee of safety for believers. I mean in terms of physical, practical, immediate help. I don't mean that never happens, but I do mean that I think that we are safe in the context of eternity. I do believe that, but until it happens to you, we heard from someone not that long ago, who had been through something awful. Even though he had seen many people afflicted by things who are believers, it still hit him like a thunderbolt and made life really.
And I mean, the truth
really
is
hard.
that Peter knew Jesus. Not many of us are going to be sitting on a beach. Well, none of us are going to be sitting on a beach with Jesus, are we? So with that reassurance that this is real, he'd risen from the dead. I think one of our problems is for many of us, for many people, when things go wrong, there is that sense, well, was any of it real? Was any of it real? And you know, one of the things I come back to sometimes is remembering that radio interview that I know I've mentioned before, when something awful had happened in the world and John Sentamu was being interviewed, and he said, I can't tell you, but this I know, and we're right back to Christmas, we're right back to the New Year. This I know, that Christ was born of Mary, that he died and he suffered and he was alive again, and the Holy Spirit came. And going back to those things and thinking, well, in the middle of it all. So who knows what this year is going to be for us, for anybody else. But maybe sometimes we have to think, but this I know. I can stand on this. This is a solid rock.
Not only that, but also looking back to moments or events, times when you did know.
Yes, exactly.
Times when, as I would put it and others would, perhaps it burned in you in a way that could never go away. And it is a conundrum that will take a lot of solving, but yeah.
So we don't necessarily wish you a simply happy new year, but we do wish you an openness to what? To some sort of adventure.
Well,
that
real,
may not on the surface
adventure,
seem very safe, but maybe real.
Yeah, joining in the plan.
Yeah.
Joining in the plan, and it's very hard to trust, as we're meant to trust, and really is.
And maybe not relying on Quiche.
No, don't rely on Quiche. Don't rely on Quiche. It's probably the only thing people will remember from this entire 20 minutes.
And we'll talk to you again next week.
Yes, bye-bye.
Bye.